Beginning transmission 103. Batman, War Drums. File under War Games.
Come on, you fuckers think that just because a guy reads comics he can't start some shit? I'll fucking take all you want!
Welcome to this week's episode of the Funny Books and Firewater Podcast.
面白い本と歌手ポッドキャストの今週のエピソードへようこそ。
Ignore her. She drinks.
Each week, a motley band of comic readers / amateur bartenders attempt to pair cocktails with comic books.
毎週漫画の読者の雑多なバンドはスラッシュアマチュア入札しようと漫画とペアカクテルバーです。
All while trying to not sound like complete morons in the
すべ
process.
ての中にしようとして音ではないような完了プロセスで低能です。
Kind of like a speakeasy kind of thing. It's kind of cool.
You can find these idiots on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr.
Facebook、Twitter、Instagram や Tumblr にこれらのバカを検索できます。
No, what?
You read too many comic books.
We now join Brian, Jeremiah, Adam, and Todd.
They're used to curious sights which they attribute to alcoholic delusions.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
I'm too sober for this shit.
Hey, and welcome to episode 103. This month we are starting another big epic arc. This one has a few more pages to read in it than when we did the full month of Watchmen. We're making up for having a loss of Batman in our schedule, and we're doing a whole month of Batman. We're doing the Batman War Games arc. What's that called, Todd? What's the overall arc?
What we're doing today is War Drums, which was the months leading into War Games.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So this is the predecessor to War Games, but this is, yes, of course, this episode is War Drums. You've already heard two lovely voices on location in Dr. Volt's comics. Thank you, Dave, for letting us record there. You probably aren't aware that that's happening until we post it on social media.
He is aware. He's not here. He closed up shop probably about 40 minutes ago, but we're here because the power at the McWarpo compound is out.
McWarpo?
Yeah.
McWarpo. That's the name of that compound. I like it. Okay. So anyway, with the keys to get us in the late night sneaking around of a comic shop to record a podcast, we have Mr. Maya.
Hey, what's up, guys? If you're in Salt Lake City, come to where I am now. Just don't come right now because we're closed. That would be Dr. Volt's Comics.
And also, it was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is that.
2043 East, 3300 South in Salt Lake City. Open 7 days a week. We have a sale coming up at the end of the month, which will be, I just realized it will be past by the time this comes out, because we are 3 weeks early, so never mind. We have free comic book day coming up on first Saturday in May. Come then, we'll have sales.
Oh, no, this won't be out before then. This will be out mid-April.
Yeah, the sale I was talking about is on March 31st.
Oh, yeah. Sale's over. Free comic book day.
But our next sale will be a free comic book day, which is the first Saturday in May. Catch me on Twitter at Mr. Maya, Instagram at the Mr. Maya, and I've been posting. I need to do it this week, but I've been posting what I've been buying every week on our Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. I want to know what you guys are reading, what I should be reading, or what we should be reading. Let us know. Interact with us. It's fun. Love you. Bye.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay, thanks, bye!
Mr. Maya loves you.
Ivy Winters. our queer audience will get that, so.
Good for them. I guess I don't get it.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
Okay.
I have watched like 2 episodes of that now.
I met her, actually. She was at Pride a couple years ago. So.
Yeah.
And she was really sweet.
Cool.
Drunk as hell.
What I'm always impressed with RuPaul is every time I see RuPaul in drag, the hair is ginormous.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever I see RuPaul without the hair, I just think that's kind of a small head on that body. Type of a deal. It's like it's just maybe it's an average size head, and it's RuPaul's can put themselves together like nobody else. But I just think that's a tiny noggin.
I just think all the neck muscles that it takes to keep that wig from flopping all over the place.
Right?
He does neck push-ups.
Right?
Has to.
You have to do more than one.
Those are dick push-ups. Dick push-ups, you do one.
Just need one.
Exactly.
Cock push-ups. Awesome. Speaking of cock push-ups, we have the Utah master, Mr. Adam.
Aww. So I've gone from cum dumpster fire to the cock push-up. Wow, I'm going places. Hey,
you are.
What's up? This is Adam from Big Shiny Robot.
You're only getting up. I mean, going up.
He didn't start the fire, but he's going to put it out.
Adam looks speechless, which is almost rare.
Just gotta bend over and grab my
No, that's not almost rare. That is very fucking rare.
I was debating whether or not to say the joke that was in my head, and I just did over the laughter. So if you caught that, good for you. It'll be in my.
Good for you.
It'll be in the musical next year. There'll be a scene where I put out a fire. But yeah, I do stuff. Good for you. I do stuff with Big Shiny Robot. Also, this podcast, Bored as Hell with Andy every so often.
Hi, Andy.
And as we record this, if everything's going well, we should be on the 5th episode of my new podcast, Cinema Queens, with my friend Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Good for you.
Hi, Chris.
We've got I've got two. One's posted at this point in time. One's mastered, mixed, all ready to go. It's a lot of fun. In some way, shape, or form, it ends up being dirtier than this podcast. And as much as the goal was to talk about movies, we really don't that much. It just ends up being about people taking deposits from hookers and all kinds of fun things. But it's cool. And Chris is a good guy, so come listen to us. We got a couple followers, and it's a lot of fun.
Come listen to you?
Yes, exactly. Come on over.
Oh, naughty.
And listen to me. Oh, yeah. Oh, and also you can catch me on Twitter at Sithbot, SITHBOT_. And if you want to follow my new podcast, it's at Cinema Queens. Be able to this sound like Cinema Queens. No. Mr. Porg is not here to talk back to you, Mr. Lion Cat.
But
I'm sure there's a porg in there somewhere.
Isn't there a little porg in all of us?
Only when we want it to be.
Only you.
At least you're not in a little porg.
I'm a little porg. Here is my handle. Here is my spout.
Oh, we've gone off.
Speaking of spouts.
Speaking of spouts, we have Todd. I don't know what the fuck that means, but there's Todd.
I'm Todd. Speaking of spouts.
Okay, I opened my last podcast with speaking of wet dreams. This is the Cinema Queens podcast.
That sounds awesome.
I think you should start every episode that way, actually. I think that should be your catchphrase.
Well, our episode title of this new one is called Wet Dreams of Daniel Radcliffe, but I realized we probably couldn't put that up on iTunes.
Why
so we
not?
just changed it to Dreaming of... Because they have like an obscenity thing where you can't put bad things up there, so we just changed it to Dreaming of Daniel Radcliffe.
Moist dreams of Daniel Radcliffe.
It was Daniel Radcliffe's mother.
I dream of Radcliffe with the light brown hair.
Hey, I'm Todd. You can find me here on the 30 Bucks of Firewater podcast. I'm often also do English class hooligans with Brian here as well, and my lovely wife, who's definitely the better half. We read all...
Hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy.
I was waiting for you to say her name, and then, but you
There you go. And that's where we read the classic pieces of literature and decide whether or not they're classic. The first two episodes we did, we rather enjoyed. This third book, we are slogging through, and that's the most optimistic term we can give it.
Hopefully that episode is out by now, because this episode should be out in April, so that episode should have come out.
Yeah, hopefully that one is out. But little preview. Charles Dickens sucks.
Yes, I hate Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
So... yeah, and there's that. You can see me hanging around. I occasionally pop into Dr. Volts as well to say hi to good old Maya here.
And Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave. No, we just have Brian left.
True, just have me left. Hi, I'm Brian. I'm a sound designer based in Southern California. Yeah, I do this podcast. I do with Todd and Amy as well. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Amy.
English Class Hooligans podcast. And I got some stuff going on, but that's about it. So as we said before, we are reading this month Batman War Games, but this week we are doing War Drums, the lead up to the War Games tale. Just as a heads up for this month to give everyone kind of a thing, we're basing our weeks based off of when it was published in individual trades, which was originally done in 5. War Drums, War Games Acts 1, 2, and 3, and then War Crimes at the end. But then, of course, recently they republished it as 2 big collections. So this week we were basically reading the first 300 pages or so of that collection. Okay.
Lots of Batman.
You know,
it was a lot of Batman.
I'll wait till we're actually talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what we're reading, basically, if you're reading that and want to join along with us, we're started Detective Comics 790, Scarification, and we go all the way through until we hit Robin 128 Fired on page 277. If you read Batman 12 Cent Adventure number 1, you've gone too far. That's where to stop. And from what Maya told me, we actually have a couple extra issues that Mr. Todd doesn't in his collection.
Yeah, it seemed like they were. It seemed like they were a couple of extra little Stephanie Brown as Robin stories.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting. Because the other big difference, I would say, is the original collection all came out in the matte paper, while the new one is on glossy.
Yeah, Todd's sad.
I am sad.
Yeah. The glossy looks really good.
Yes, it really does.
Well, so we will start out with a drinking game.
And now for sports.
Listen up, sports fans. Prepare yourself and your liver for this week's drinking game. Remember, it's only a game, and a dumb one at that. So don't take it too seriously, and above all else, please drink responsibly.
My drinking game's called You're Not My Real Dad. We haven't talked about the book yet, but spoiler alert. See what I did there? Stephanie Brown ends up taking over for Robin later on in the book, and Batman's like, basically, you listen to me or you're not Robin. So anytime that she either disobeys him, is about to disobey him, or that he has to tell her, you do what I say, take a drink.
Todd, what's yours?
Mine's called, Hey, Who Dat?
Who dat say who dat when I say who dat?
Every time you're coming across a character or a superhero and you have no idea who it is, or even as well as like, hey, the commissioner is not Commissioner Gordon. Who the fuck is Onyx?
Orpheus,
Tarantula.
Come Dumpster Fire.
The second.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, the sequel. I like that pretty well.
In 3D.
And smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure you want that in smell-o-vision. I always take a shower afterwards.
What about sticky vision?
Sticky vision's fine.
Yeah, sticky vision.
Come sluts, the world unite.
That's right. But yeah, every time you come across a character you're not quite sure, it's like, who's this? Go ahead and take a drink.
I'm just going to jump in with mine. I call mine You Rang, which is every time Alfred appears in the story, take a drink. He's not in this as much as I'm used to him being in Batman books, so that's why I threw that in there. So when there's an Alfred sighting, take a drink. And Mr. Adam, what is your drinking game rule?
Mine's called, wait, where is this going again? So every time the story jumps around or they change focus, take a drink. We'll get into it, but yeah, it's like every single issue or every single 2 issues changes the focus or point of the story. So
well, that probably leads us into a really good position to go into our votes as to whether or not we believe that it is worth your hard-earned time, money, cash, all that sort of stuff.
Vote for Pedro.
So I've been asked by the judge to be the foreman.
Vote for Pedro.
And I want y'all to know that we's gonna run a fair jury and a clean jury.
It's time for a vote. Because we love you. And we don't want to waste your money. We will now vote on whether this week's book is fit for human consumption by you, our dear listener. Along with each vote, our panel will also provide one piece of evidence to support their vote.
Vote for Pedro.
Do you expect me to talk?
Vote for Pedro.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. There is nothing you can talk to me about that I don't already know.
Mr. Todd, we'll save you for last since this is your recommendation. Mr. Maya, what is your vote?
I'm going to say War Drums as a solo, like the trade by itself, no. If you're going to read this, get the 2 volumes because it's really one giant story. It's I would say it doesn't hold its own on its own, but knowing where it's going, you'll want to just read the whole thing.
Okay, Mr. Adam.
I'm in the same boat, and actually I texted Maya earlier I was like, I don't really know what I think about this. And he's like, no, you have to have this foundation for the rest of it to all work out. So as its own story, no. But I'm hoping that as we finish the rest of the month and we finish the whole story, it will pay off knowing this back stuff. Because it wasn't bad by any means, but it was kind of like, it was like, okay, I'm reading individual issues. I'm not reading a story.
It was like a bag of cats. It was all over the place.
A bag of dumpster cats, yes. And they're very sticky. But yeah, so yeah, if you can read the whole story, yes. If you just want to read War Drums, no.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you guys just a little bit. I don't know exactly where the story is going as far as War Drums go, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But I actually thought this was interesting enough. The vote of confidence that I take in this is that Maya had warned us, in text messages that, hey, this is really long and readery, so break it up into chunks. I read most of it in one sitting. I found it pretty readable, moved along. I was pretty interested. And although it was a bunch of different issues, which we've had other books like that do that in the past, like The Death of Superman and or a few other things. I didn't find it completely so random and haphazard that it really bothered me. They pieced them out together, like all this, the Batgirl stuff was kind of together, all the Batman stuff was kind of together, so it kind of made sense to me. So I was actually okay with it. So I'm still going to vote yes, that this is readable and interesting. And Mr. Todd, what is your vote?
Obviously, I'm the one who recommended this, so my answer is a yes.
No, this is your fault.
This is my fault. Absolutely.
Hey, I suggested Dark Empire.
You did. No, and this is much. It's as the collection of 5 books and is doing the whole arc. I think we should come and talk about this again once the story is.
In 4 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be all a little pent up.
I should come in 4 weeks.
And 3 weeks and 2 weeks and 1 week and 3 days.
And every
2
day,
days and hourly. You just don't want to get the prostate cancer.
Well, that's
it's good for you.
That's right.
They make machines for that, honey.
They do indeed. But I did enjoy it. You're seeing the Bat Family. This is a whole arc, and it's an event book of a whole story, but you really see the entirety of the Bat Family interacting together. And I haven't come across that too often.
Not recently. Every now and then they'll do a crossover that goes through the whole Bat line. But in the last few years, they haven't done any that are huge. Like they did Death of the Family.
That was the big one I was thinking of.
But that is minuscule compared to this. But before this, you had like No Man's Land. Went through the entire this War Games. Pretty much, if you take War Drums and War Crimes out, because they're kind of like the prologue and epilogue.
Yes.
Take the bulk of the War Game story. It was every Bat book for 3 months. So 3 issues of, I think, 8 or 9 Bat books each. No Man's Land was every Bat book for like over a year.
Yeah, it's humongous.
It is giant. But then you also had like Nightfall, where Batman broke his back, and that went through every Bat book, and it's I kind of miss these big Bat events.
What's interesting with Nightfall too is because you can go. They have like multiple versions of the trade, and I've not looked through all the versions, but they had like 3 volumes that were probably each one was about as big as the War Drums volume, and then they came out with these other ones that I think had all the extraneous stuff that like it's 3 volumes, but they're like twice as big.
So I think the one that you're originally talking about was just the Nightfall story.
Yeah.
Now they're big, thick trades. That I think they're on like newsprint or it's not glossy paper, but like the first trade is Nightfall, the second trade is all the Azrael as Batman, and the third trade is Night's End when Bruce comes back and kicks the shit out of him and takes back being Batman.
Yeah,
no more Asbat.
Yeah,
I think I know the original ones were just the 3 trades that had the 3 main stories, but the new ones I've seen at Volts and also like Barnes and Noble and other places were just ginormous tomes. It was almost like omnibuses.
Sure. So this one is much smaller than. Oh my god.
Yeah, these are the new ones that he just came and swamped down.
As much as I just did that, it looks like about 2,000 pages of comics for Nightfall.
We're not talking about Nightfall.
No, we're talking about War Games.
It actually is 2,000 pages because each one's about 620 pages.
So it's with War Games. It's the whole Bat Family. It's a Bat event, and it's a whole lot of fun. For me, this was a lot of introduction to a lot of characters. And where I've really come to love my favorite Batgirl has to be Cassandra Cain. She's just awesome. So, but we'll just see her a little bit in this book. It's a lot of fun, though. It sets the grounds and the story for what's yet to come. So, and also a little thing to be warned. We read Hush on this podcast a little while back. This takes place not long after the conclusion of Hush.
No.
So at the end of Hush, you've got Batman kind of all shaken up of those events, and that is part of the proceeding coming into this. So a little bit of Batman's frame of mind of what's going on there.
Well, don't they also mention Zero Year in this as well?
No, 0 Year wasn't until the New 52.
Okay, for some reason I thought they'd mentioned, like, they talk about when you move to the hills, a bunch of people move to the hills.
Was that during, like, Cataclysm and No Man's Land?
Maybe it's No Man's Land, the reference.
But yeah, no, this book came out in 2005, I think, around. That's just me kind of guessing, and Hush, I think, was in about 2003.
Yeah, it looks like the copyright for the solo stuff was in 2004.
2004.
See, that makes this, okay, this book is older than I thought it was.
Yeah, this is pre-New 52 Batman.
Then that doesn't necessarily explain away anything. Like, it still worked for me, but I was thinking it was newer than it is. But okay, cool. Well, I think that's a great introduction that leads us into our little break. So if you would like to read this, which I think we're all going to recommend you read the overall, maybe, and you kind of need to read this. This is sort of your vegetables to get into the rest of it. I actually still enjoyed it and thought it was fun. So we'll give you the chance to go and read that, and when we come back, we'll get all spoilerific on this.
If you have yet to read this week's book and would like to read it now, press pause. Go ahead. We'll wait.
Hey, and welcome back. So there are roughly, we're guessing, 4 or 5 storylines in here. We're going to kind of just break down the 4 or 5 different little storylines that we get to in here. We will summarize them, discuss them, and then move on to the next storyline. So we start out with this first book called Scarification, which is Batman looking for a dude who, basically looking for a drug that's been killing people. And in doing so, I believe this ends up leading to him. You sort of have an introduction to Batgirl. I don't remember this playing much into anything else. Does this really play much into anything else after this?
The part that will play into something is was Leslie Tompkins in this issue? I'm kind of flipping through real quick.
I don't think she is. That's why I was looking through it real fast to see. It's really about Batman kind of pushing his limits too far and getting a little too close to actually killing people.
Yeah, he's in a pissed off mood right now.
Yeah.
There is kind of a fun thing as Batman breaks in to this, way 40th story apartment. And is interrogating a guy, and he throws him out of the window and through the glass in the hallway. You see him falling, and then Batgirl comes in, swoops in, and saves the guy. And she basically goes to Batman after the fact. Is like, "You'd be lucky I saved him." He's like, "I knew you were there."
Yeah.
Because you think you are. You've been following. I've known you followed me for a while, kind of thing.
Yeah, I knew you were there.
Would it be safe to say that other than kind of being the angry dad of the Bat family, his give a fuck is kind of broken in these issues?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
Other than caring for his kids,
he's getting closer to being the goddamn Batman.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so he finds this guy that's making this drug that's killing people. It's kind of just a team up story. It's showing a relationship between him and Cassandra. Just kind of right before this, to kind of give a little background. Like, immediately before this book is when Tim Drake's dad found out that he was Robin, and he's like, no, this bullshit has to stop. I'm going to tell everyone that you're Robin and that Bruce is Batman. And Tim's like, no, I will give up being Robin if you keep the secret. This is kind of like Bruce kind of thinking, oh, maybe Tim can have a normal life now. Maybe Stephanie can have a normal life. But yeah, it's really just a Batgirl, Batman team-up story.
And it is on the anniversary of Jason Todd's death.
Yeah,
the second Robin.
Just saying that he would have been 18, I think. Yeah, he would have been 18. Which means how much shit has gone down since he died? And how old was he, like 14, 15? So, like, 15 years worth of comics has taken place in, like, 3 years?
Yeah. Forever young, man.
Yes.
Forever young.
Continuing with that, then we start what we call the surrogate storyline. Basic storyline is there is a free clinic. Poor girl walks in. She's been shot. She's bleeding, but there is no bullet. They keep looking for it, and they find that there's water. Basically, what you come to realize is that there has been a pop singer who has a surrogate girl who is carrying a child for her. She's trying to change her image. The gang that she runs with has somehow gotten weapons from Dr. Freeze, or from Mr. Freeze. That's how they have the frozen bullets so that the body melts them away. Batman realizes when he gets shot. He goes looking, trying to find her. The other part of the story that you need to know is that a family friend of his who helped raise him is working at the clinic and has been kidnapped to take care of this girl who's been shot while these gangbangers are kind of doing their thing. You get a little flashback of him as a kid and that kind of stuff. Ultimately, what you find out is that this singer is actually the girl who's carrying the baby's mother, and that she was just trying to claim the child for her own, just kind of protect her own image and and all that kind of stuff.
And Batman performs a cesarean.
Batman performs a cesarean, which there's really a great little, I don't know if it's in this issue or an upcoming issue, where the police are like, oh yeah, Batman delivered that baby. Like, damn, is there anything he can't do? Which I thought was pretty funny. But basically, they come down to the point where they have to decide whether or not to save the girl or the baby. They end up opting to the baby, and I don't think the girl is saved, correct?
No,
she dies.
She dies.
Yeah, she dies. So what was the woman who had the surrogate baby now actually has her grandchild, but her daughter has since died. And the doctor friend of Batman's at the very end kind of tries to convince him that, hey, maybe your violent ways are not so great. If you really want to help people, maybe you should become a doctor. And he's kind of like, nah, I already got myself a career. I'm going to stick with that. And that kind of ends up, yeah, okay, thanks, bye. That kind of ends up that storyline. Is that sound correct? Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah.
So we've had the drink twice now.
I was just going to say, I really like, especially this Batman stuff before we get into the Stephanie Brown, because it does go through issues of Detective Comics, which that book tends to be more ground level, like detective stories. Therefore the name. And that's why I kind of like it, because you have Mr. Freeze, but so far, and what I like a lot in this book is we don't really get a whole lot of like supervillains. Like you get a little bit near the end with Stephanie, but for the most part, it's just street level crime and Batman just being Batman and having to solve mysteries.
Yeah, who is this person? Help me find them.
Oh, she's really the pregnant girl's mom, and blah blah blah. Yeah.
And it's interesting here as you're watching it, he's interacting with Oracle, which is Barbara Gordon, quite a bit, and she's being his the computer in the sky for him, for lack of a better term, Oracle. Yeah, who would have thought that? And that's a lot of fun watching that there too. So
all the stuff with Leslie Tompkins, keep that in mind by the time we get to the end of the story.
Yes. So also in reading this, if you've watched Batman the Animated Series, Leslie Tompkins plays quite a role in that, and she continues to play a role in this and being quite his grounding and even Batman's sounding board or consciousness in a lot of ways.
She won't sugarcoat shit. She will tell him what he needs to hear, whether he wants to hear it or not.
And he'll listen.
And he'll listen. Very few people can do that to Batman.
Yes.
Alfred's probably the only real one. Even like Dick and Tim, like he still is like you're my kids. I'm smarter than you. I don't need to listen to you. But yeah,
but it's really creepy when they call him
Daddy.
Tell him yes, Daddy.
Oh, Daddy.
Oh, Daddy.
Yes.
So now we're going to get into The Monsters of Rot, which is a multi-part story. Start out with a drink.
Yeah, because we've changed to a new story now.
That's true. We have changed to a new story now. So this is starts out with a ship being like full of immigrant bodies being burned. You have a little bit of the funeral of the daughter from the previous storyline, and the grandmother with the baby, who she's claiming is her own baby. So you have the arrival of Orpheus as Batman is trying to interrogate. Now, someone edify me on this. Orpheus is like a good guy masquerading as a bad guy, correct?
Yeah, and
yeah, he's pretending to be a bad guy to get in with his gang.
He's kind of like a CI almost.
Yeah.
Who is he really? Like, how is he connected to Batman really?
I'll be honest, I never knew. The first time I was introduced to Orpheus, way back when I started buying a lot more comics, was about this time, but it was actually with the start of War Games. So all this stuff in War Drums I had never read. So when I started reading, Orpheus was a new character to me. I didn't know who he was. I just knew that he was basically working with Batman, but pretending to be a gangster, and they pretend fight to keep the illusion.
Yeah, pretty much. He grew up in Gotham, got some skills outside of Gotham, and came back to help out. So kind of like a mini Batman story, of himself.
So where he's connected, he's an undercover Batman, basically. He's, also wears a helmet that kind of looks like Daft Punk, which is kind of cool. So there's a little bit of an interaction with Batman. He's trying to find out why this ship of bodies was burned, and Orpheus kind of, helping him give some information that way. Then we have an encounter with the Tarantula, which is this woman who comes in and kicks this guy's ass and handcuffs him to the bed until he answers some questions, kind of kinky.
And shoots him through the hand.
He talks about something called the Merge, which is an old wives' tale about, a creature that would rot you from the inside. They later describe it as it was sort of more of a way of trying to keep people clean and talking about how, like, if you drank from a dirty river, you'd get sick, that kind of thing. So it came from a slight amount of fact, but it was sort of not really believed to be anything real. So I was
just going to jump in and say Tarantula is kind of, and I think this is later on, but kind of controversial. Early 2000s, shit probably wouldn't fly today, but she raped Nightwing.
Really?
Basically, he had killed Blockbuster. Oh, this might have been right before. I just had to look it up to double check. But yeah, he had killed Blockbuster and was basically going into shock from, like, being fucked up about killing Blockbuster. And she just took advantage of him while on a rooftop while he's, like, all fucked in the head. She is a shitty character.
Yeah. She also, is, like, more likely to set things on fire and whatnot. She comes back and finds, you kind of do this little side note where they show a bunch of guys walking out after work, and you see one of them has the same sort of wound on his hand like the guy that she's tied up. And then, like, you realize that their bodies have all rotten. And then you go see the guy she'd handcuffed to the bed, and his body has rotten from the inside out. And then there's a guy of all... he's made all of cockroaches, and so she splashes some alcohol on him and sets him on fire, and then she calls and finds out who this guy called last, and it was this waste management company where you saw these guys die earlier. So now we have Batman going out on patrol. He ends up talking to the commissioner, saying he wants to keep all the cops out of a certain area because he wants to investigate it for a little while. He shows up, fights with the tarantula because that's what you do when you first see people, and they hear gunfire outside, and they realize that there is a bunch of people shooting stuff and trying to burn things to the ground. You now see 3 people being called. One of them is Orpheus, one of them is the commissioner, and one of them is
the sanitation commissioner.
Yeah.
2 of them get out of bed. The sanitation commissioner does not because he is dead. D-E-D, dead.
I was just about to say
Batman beat you to it. So Batman is fighting Tarantula in fire, and Orpheus shows up with a flamethrower as well. So Orpheus kind of ends up scaring off Tarantula. They fake fight. Batman runs away. More fire, and Tarantula and Batman trying to escape together, and they find the big shit demon thing kind of being created in the sanitation thing. They end up escaping down into the sewers.
The Mugra.
Yeah, Gotham thing. Yeah, and so then they run into Kafka, who was a character I wasn't terribly familiar with. His name made total sense that it was a character that was controlling bugs, but is there anything more I need to know about Kafka or in the future?
No.
This is the only thing I think I've ever seen him in.
So Kafka, the guy that controls bugs, is the one that takes out the Mugra.
But so Kafka, like Batman, sort of like just leave him alone. He's a pest, but he's not dangerous. The Orpheus is still trying to investigate. These people are dying. He gives some more information to Batman. Tarantula talks to her mom or grandmother about the origins of Batman the merge or whatever they call it. Mugra. Okay, so Batman is back in the sewers looking for the Mugra. They end up going back into where they kind of sealed this area of the waste plant, and they see this like sort of creature fighting, and it's Kafka fighting this merged creature kind of thing. And they said, okay, well then he's taking care of it, so it's not our problem. Batman gives an antidote shot to the tarantula, and then he gives the same shot to the police commissioner to say, hey, give this to all your people.
It's the second time she's gotten a shot by someone in the Bat family.
Yeah.
But so then that basically sort of ends the issue until you see some guy meditating. Do we know who this dude meditating is?
Not at this point.
No.
So then this sort of like, it's weird because this doesn't have a page break. Was this originally published together as like an annual something? Okay. So we jump into what's called Polished Stone. So this is sort of a pivot. But we have
Pivot.
The Green Arrow. He's looking for Onyx. She is you learn, if you didn't know already, that she's a member of the League of Assassins. They kind of drop some not so subtle hints to tell you who she is. So he comes and finds her and takes her back with him to visit the Batman and family. And they're in the middle of a firefight when they show up.
So as I read this right, Green Arrow was doing an errand for Batman.
Yes.
All right, might have bitching and moaning a little bit, but still, he was doing it.
Yeah. So Onyx shows up and essentially is acting as a bodyguard for Orpheus. Is that correct?
Yeah, number 2 type of a person to back him up.
So then we jump into they're at a club hanging out with
Penguin,
the Penguins Club, which
it's the Iceberg Lounge.
The Iceberg Lounge, where it's all villains. Batman walks in. They start a fight. He does a fake fight with Onyx and with Orpheus. Fight. Rip the place up because that's all good fun.
Batgirl is there too.
Oh, and Batgirl is there as well. Yes, Batgirl is kicking some ass,
kiss,
whatever.
kiss.
Yep.
And then they kind of just all leave.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to. I mean, other than establishing that she's there doesn't seem to be a whole lot there. And then, of course,
it's I think to show more that Orpheus and Onyx are against Batman, or at least to show
that they are,
like to the other criminals that they're not.
Yeah, because like they talk about how Onyx would claim publicly that she had turned and gone straight, but then there was sort of a way of trying to prove that she hadn't and was still evil so that she could fight Batman in public and that kind of thing. So it was a big publicity stunt, was what that all was.
Yes.
And that kind of ends that section. So then we pivot.
I want to go home and watch that episode now.
We don't have power.
So we have this girl running track who ends up talking to Tim, who... It's
Stephanie.
It's Stephanie. What's her last name?
Might we also add, there would be a significant art style.
Oh, yeah, this is a big change. Also, it's written by Bill Willingham from Fables as well.
Fables, I was just about to say that.
You can tell because it has, at least this issue has a far more relationship-y vibe.
Yes, it does.
What is Stephanie's last name?
Brown. Yeah.
So Stephanie Brown, she runs up, she kisses Tim Drake, former Robin who has since retired. And then we have, they sort of walk off together in romantic hands. And then we have the Scarab. Now, who is Scarab?
Also a villain I didn't know before this.
Okay.
Yep.
But see, Scarab, oddly enough, gets to have word bubbles as well, like Batman or anybody else. And it gets to have inner thought monologues, which I thought that was weird for a villain, but that's okay.
Well, no, she's talking to her, like, whoever's employing her, isn't she?
Or her robot or whatever.
It's or it might be like a log.
Or a log or something, yeah.
Like it says Scarab to client, 613K progress report.
Gotcha. Well, and it's also, you have Stephanie doing her Batgirl war journal, you know, at one point in time as well. So,
and then a couple episodes when it goes into like cursive, it's cursive. It's annoying as fuck, by the way.
That is annoying. It's like, how do I? Oh yes, I can read.
Bitch, your handwriting sucks.
I'll be completely honest. I skipped a bunch of that because I was like, I'm not spending 30 minutes trying to decipher what the fuck this chick's writing. So
yeah. Okay, so actually, so then we have Geraldo looking fucker on the news. Tim's Drake bet. Doesn't it look like Geraldo? I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
So, not that he really has anything important to say about this. It's just that he fucking looks like Geraldo.
Except this guy's mustache is less emphatic.
Well, neither does Geraldo anymore, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, anyway. Tim Drake is going out. His dad's like, well, you're not getting in any trouble. He's like, no, I'm really going just to study, you know, or hang out or whatever. So then you have the Spectre? Spoiler. So, spoiler alert, the spoiler has arrived.
Yes.
So the spoiler is there. She's jumped across rooftops. She ends up seeing her boyfriend, Tim, get kissed by another girl. She doesn't, of course, in classic sort of teenage romance fashion, doesn't pay attention to him pushing her away and saying, no, no, no. So she's now all butthurt and wants to, and runs away, basically. So then we have Tim at dinner. He has brought over a friend. They're going to play some games. His life is really boring now that he's not a superhero, and I think he's getting pretty bored with it.
So now you just masturbate like every other 16-year-old boy.
That's right.
Apparently. Stephanie is not in her room, and Batman shows up in the Batcave to find a new Robin, which is Stephanie, because her mom can't find her. We then have what's the name of that character again?
Scarab.
See, that's the thing, is the Scarab and the spoiler, like, it's two characters that have been introduced with S in the name. It got very confusing for me very fast. So, Scarab, who is out, looking for something or other. What the hell is she looking for?
She's hunting down people that they think might have been Robin.
Right.
Gotcha,
teenage boys with the same body type and hair color and jawline as Robin. Or is Tim Drake?
They're trying to kill out who Robin is or whatever. Batman, basically against Alfred's wishes, take a drink. Says yes, you can be Robin for a while, but we're going to train you. Tim's trying to get a hold of his girlfriend, can't get a hold of her because she's training just like he used to be. So the tables have turned. He was a bad boyfriend, now she's a bad girlfriend. Congratulations. She's training. He's starting to develop some a social life, playing in the snow. Ends up talking to that girl he was kissing, but where is his girlfriend? Well, she's out being Robin, taking over the job, but he doesn't know it yet. So we then move on. There's still Scarab's still looking, and this is where art style changes. So it's the same storyline, different art style.
Well, we're jumping from Robin to this is now an issue of Detective Comics.
Gotcha.
It's not really the same storyline. It's just that now that she's Robin, she can show up in the other Bat books as Robin.
So she shows up in Batman. She's getting a purse snatcher, still being kind of trained by Batman, and he's looking at a crime scene. They find a bunch of blood. And Batman's starting to realize that that the killer's still there. They're going looking for him. She gets kidnapped by Zaz while they're investigating, and she kind of fights her way out. And then Batman comes in to kind of help save the day, and the two of them escape. Fight. Sorry, flipping a lot of pages of fighting. Oh, the one thing that does happen is Batman ends up grabbing his nose and pulling it up.
Batgirl
to try to do, or Batgirl does, yeah. Robin does that, yeah, and Batman is concerned about it because if his nose hadn't already been broken, she would have just used lethal force, which is the ironic thing about him being like completely over-aggressive, yet he is being careful of not letting her be, too violent to the point where she could actually kill someone.
Do as I say.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. Take a drink because of Todd's drinking game.
Well, also my drinking game, too.
They escape, and she asks if she's fired. He says no, he's still teaching her how to do stuff. So now we're going over to Batgirl. Different style of art, switching a little bit. So Batgirl is fighting and protecting a little girl who has a penguin. Oh, I remember this storyline. Okay. I read it yesterday. I think I remember all this. This is the story where basically Robin joins in with Oracle and Batgirl, and they kind of have their own little adventure. What's going on is that the Penguin is using all of his henchmen who have children to basically smuggle stuff for them. They're sending their little girls into like bars to deliver weaponry or whatever, and collect cash for the Joker and stuff like that, so they wouldn't be necessarily noticed. The little girl goes in, tries to get some money. It doesn't go well. Batgirl shows up and fights, and goes to try to save the day. They get this weapon that the Joker had. The Joker's all sorts of pissed off, and the ladies show up to throw the Penguin. They show the Penguin around, and they beat him all up. And they end up, getting the little girl sent back to a new, better life kind of thing. And then we jump to a different art style for another Batgirl story.
I hated this. I was not a fan.
So Adam was not a fan of this one. Spoiler alert. So basically what this episode or issue starts out with, and really what it is that you have Robin, who is being chased by a Old West gunslinger type character named Calamity Jane. She's shooting. She gets herself into like sort of a corner. She comes up to fight. Batgirl shows up to help fight as well. They fight. Calamity Jane escapes. Batgirl swings away, and then you find out at the end that Calamity Jane was hired to help try to train Robin to fight for her life. And that's the end of that little storyline.
Those two are not in my collection, by the way.
Those are in yours? Okay.
Those are not in my...
Yeah, those are the two.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'll wait till we're done because...
Sure.
What I had to say kind of jumps to the end, but I think I know why those two are included, but I'll wait.
Okay, cool. So then we start in. I think this last section is all part of one storyline, if I remember correctly.
Drink.
Yeah, this is all. This is two issues of Robin. Yeah. Robin 127, 128.
Okay, so what we have here is Robin and Batman are still fighting and doing things. He keeps kind of trying to tell her, like, she keeps wanting to like fly the bat plane and drive the Batmobile and do all these sort of things, and he's like, no, you have to, sort of pay your dues, that kind of thing. Tim's still trying to get a hold of his girlfriend, can't do it. The Scarab is still hunting down. I think that's really where we get into them hunting down the other Robin, trying to hunt down the other Robin, that kind of thing. We have a little scene that's kind of cool where Tim basically talks a bully down from beating up a kid just with his words. The girl who's been kind of chasing after him kind of is impressed with that. You see that the new Robin is training her ass off, and then he ends up calling the bat phone and gets a hold of her because he's aware that she's basically taken over his gig. And you can tell he's a little bummed out, but she still wants to have the gig. So Batman and Robin go out looking.
So what I kind of love about that little sequence, though, is Stephanie answers the phone. She is definitely wearing like athletic gear.
Yeah. Branded with Batman.
Yeah, branded with the Batman. It's a pink jumpsuit, but there's still the Bat logo right there. And she's like, that's right. I just thought that was hilarious.
That's for what Batman wears on the off days. You know what I mean? Just to lounge around the house.
Sure.
Yeah, the pink jumpsuit, that's all his. Batman and Robin go out on an adventure to find the Scarab. They're hunting her down. You have, and also in that phone call, Tim was going to meet up with Robin. Instead, he's sitting on a roof, and Stephanie shows up as Batgirl. They have a little heart-to-heart. Robin jumps out.
No, Cassandra. Batgirl shows up.
Yeah.
Cassandra does.
Who did I say?
Stephanie.
Fuck, sorry, I apologize. So Cassandra, Batgirl, shows up, and her and Robin have a heart-to-heart. Scarab breaks in to try to kill somebody, and the new and improved blonde-haired Robin is there. Surprise, surprise. And then Batman shows up behind the Scarab and fight.
And Scarab kind of wipes the floor.
Kind of does, yeah. And throws out the window. Robin has to do her little trick move of falling and then shooting a gun and swinging and all that kind of stuff. So the fight goes on for quite a while. But while she's being beaten up, Robin is able to put a tracker on the Scarab. Scarab runs away. We have another part of that conversation between the former Robin, Tim Drake, and Cassandra. Batgirl, where Batgirl's kind of like, saying, hey, I feel sorry for you, whatever. And then he kind of comes to realize that she's not there to actually talk to him, be heart to heart, but she's there for protection for him because they're looking for someone who's trying to kill Batman. So he kind of figures that all out. So this is where then we go to Robin telling Batman that she put a tracker on him. They're still trying to track her down. They end up busting in on like a floor that like she's not in or so. Oh no! So they use the bat plane. She lowers Batman in. Batman and Scarab are fighting. Robin decides that she wants to kind of try to come in and help. In the process of this fight, Batman gets blinded temporarily.
And the important part is Batman told her, "Do not leave the plane."
Yeah, do not leave.
Do not leave. Do not do it. And he's getting his butt wiped.
Yeah, do not leave the plane.
Leaves.
So she comes down. He finally, after 4 weeks, calls her up. She shows up ready for duty, and he informs her that she has been fired. So she is no longer Robin. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And that is the end of this week's books so far.
And Batman is now Donald Trump.
No, he's not.
What?
Don't you dare say such whorish things.
You're fired.
No,
Yeah, no.
He didn't use Twitter.
He did not. No.
He didn't bat tweet.
And he
from the
told
shitter.
her to her face.
Bat tweet.
And not over a text message or anything like that.
True.
Got your agenda
Batman's
right
not a count.
Yeah.
So now that we reached the end, I think the reason, because she was Robin for a handful of issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the reason those two, well, it was one issue and a short story. The one that Adam hated was a short story from an anthology book they did. I'm pretty sure those are just included because that would be every appearance of her as Robin.
Sure, I bet it is.
So I bet you that's just the reason why those are included. But I like the Batgirl issue. The solo one was, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they aren't all amazing, but they're definitely all readable and interesting. You know what I mean? Like, if I'd been reading them individual issue by issue, I'd still be, subscribing or reading to it. I actually kind of like the Robin stuff. I like the Batgirl stuff. You didn't get, you got more info on Batgirl than almost any other character in there, and her relationship with Tim Drake. So that makes you wonder what's going to happen there. There's this little love triangle, and then what's going to happen because when Batman fires her, he also mentions that she should not go back to being spoiler as well. How did Tim Drake and Stephanie meet? Does anybody know that?
I don't, but she's actually the daughter of one of Batman's villains called the Clue Master. And I know I just looked it up. I know she first appeared as Stephanie Brown in Detective Comics 647 in 1992, and the next issue she was Spoiler. So I would assume just sometime, probably even around then, they met.
All right, so she's been around for 10 years at this, 10, 12 years at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, she's never getting out of high school.
Now talk about the definition of hell.
Yeah.
Just be in high school forever.
Or like the Simpsons characters. I never realized that, because this is a weird total side note, because I was an older brother, I always identified with Bart more, and I was looking at a thing of if you were the same age as these characters growing up, we were actually the same age as Lisa, not Bart, which was a weird mind-blowing thing for me at this point in time.
Well, my challenge is because it was Bart and Lisa, I was identified, but with the Simpsons now, I'm more in line with Homer and Marge.
Well, that's what this article I was reading said. It was that if you started out watching The Simpsons when you're the same age as the kids, you're old enough now that you really identify with the parents. That you're more Bart and you're more Marge and Homer's age now, which is it's just funny. Maggie would be in her 30s or something like that at this point in time.
Oh my God.
Anyway, okay, so let's get some overall thoughts and things like that on things. Adam, you've been a little bit quiet. What are you thinking?
There isn't much I can really add to this book that I already haven't said. I mean, the reason why I haven't said much is because when I said, if you're going to read the whole story, read this to get the foundation built. But I just didn't give a shit. It was kind of cool to see where female Robin came from because we've seen her in some of the DC animated movies and some other stuff, and I'd never actually read the story of Stephanie, where she came from and everything that kind of led up to that. I mean, I will say it was kind of really fun, some of the stuff with her and Zaz, and watching Batman be the world's greatest detective and saying, okay, well, this is how I see this, and his teaching her was actually those issues were some of my favorite of the series. But again, I'm going off what Maya and what Todd said as far as there being a big payoff later on. But we talked about how Hickman just started laying the seeds for Secret Wars back in the very
Fantastic
first
Four.
Fantastic Four we read. And that, he spent 10 years putting all these things down, and that was kind of fun because I got seen where the story went to, and now this is where it's starting to be lay the foundation. But I don't have that with this, so for me, it was just kind of a slog to get through. And I actually read it over a period of 2 days, and it's a fast read. I'm not going to say it bogged you down and made you spend a lot of time doing it, but
it's not heavy thinking material.
No, not at all.
It's literal fun popcorn superhero comics.
Fight.
Yeah,
which I'm fine with. But again, when I'm looking at the graphic novel and the one I was reading was the one Maya had the whole war games in one book, and it's like, hey, here, stop right here. So we're going to read the rest later. It felt like they were just trying to sell comic books, not so much they were trying to tell a cool story. And maybe that'll change as I get further in and I learn more about it. As much as we read other books like Saga and everything else that where you can take a six issue graphic novel arc and tell a story that has things all combined and turned in. This didn't have that. This just felt like a loose collection of comics they put in a book to make money. And again, I'm trusting mine and you that it's going to go forward and it's going to pay off in the end. And you had to, like we said, eat your vegetables before you get to the good stuff. But this is a lot of vegetables, and I was really full by the time I was done with it.
Yeah. So really, the important part of this, the whole Stephanie is Robin, and failure of Stephanie is Robin, really plays into the actual war game story. And like I said earlier on, that relationship that Bruce has with Leslie Tompkins
is really important. Anything
else is just kind of, I think they're just kind of issues that happen to be like in between that stuff, and they're just like, well, we might as well put this run in here, like the bug cockroach story.
Right, you're really establishing Orpheus.
Oh yeah, I guess that did establish Orpheus, who is a big player in the
war games as well. So you're established. So this is really all about establishing and setting the stage. So you've got 6 issues of setting the stage, and nothing's.
It's like 12 issues of setting the stage.
12 issues of setting the stage. You're right. Every 2 issues it changes, and you see. I mean, there was a little blip of see a bit of Green Arrow. They talk about Nightwing, but we never actually see Nightwing. You see Tim moping around, not being Robin. And you see Batman just kind of the goddamn Batman mode right now, and he's trying to be out of his funk. He recognizes he's in a funk, but he's still there.
And Leslie's saying, hey, knock that shit off.
So, and then some other of it. I mean, you have a little bit of relationship building between Leslie and Batman we didn't talk about as much. So you've got Bruce as a younger man going to visit Leslie. Was that, at least mine it did, out in Africa.
Oh, we got that. And
yeah. And
when he stood up against the terrorists who came in.
Right. And so he stood up, and so you see her going, I am a pacifist, I will not do violence. And he's like, Batman's going, there is a place for this. And where is the balance? And right now, I think Batman is trying to find balance again. And
it's hard to balance being Batman.
It is, isn't it?
Does that put us in a good position for cocktails?
Behold, we finally fulfill the second half of our title and make with the fire water.
Alcoholics transform!
We need to get these bitches drunk.
That sure spells boo!
Mr. Todd, what is your cocktail?
Well, in honor of, let me jump to it, of a little bit earlier, we had the Beetle Man fighting the Mugra. So mine is actually the Beetle Juice is what it's going on, because after it fights that shit demon and everything, there's a lot of weird caca juice floating around.
Gotcha.
So this is 1 ounce of vodka, a half ounce of melon liqueur, Midori works well, a half ounce of a raspberry liqueur like Chambord, half ounce of blue curacao, 2 ounces of sweet and sour, and 1.5 ounces of cranberry juice with ice. So what you're going to do is fill a double old-fashioned glass with ice. To the glass, add the vodka, melon liqueur, raspberry, blue curacao, and sweet and sour. The drink should be really green. Pour the cranberry juice on top of the drink. You can let the juice float or stir it in for a creepy color change. Serve with the black and white striped straws and say, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, and stop.
Adam, what is your cocktail?
So mine is just called the Assassin, and it's really, really easy. You just take a 1 ounce of a bourbon, so Jack Daniels if you want to go inexpensive. 1 ounce of amaretto.
Jack Daniels is whiskey, but that's okay.
Fine, whatever.
Snob.
And then so 1 ounce of Jack Daniels, 1 ounce of amaretto. You pour over ice and stir. That's it.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Mine is called the Batman. It is something to keep you up all night, apparently. It is 1 ounce of spiced rum, half ounce of coffee liqueur, half ounce of vanilla vodka, and you top it off with root beer. So you basically mix the 3 items together and then put a little root beer on top, and you get a little cocktail. I threw in that little root beer piece of it, too, because it was in the recipe, but part of the reason why I picked it was that it has a little bit of the weirdness of some root beer on top of it. And Mr. Maya, what is your cocktail?
So my cocktail, the book kind of put me in especially like the issues of detective, kind of put me in like a noirish crime type of mood, which I usually associate with like whiskey. Mine's just a New York bourbon sour, which is 2 ounces of whiskey, 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup, an ounce of lemon juice, 1 egg white, which is optional, and a 1/2 ounce of red wine. Combine all the ingredients except the wine in a mixing glass or shaker. Shake vigorously and strain into an ice-filled glass. Then slowly pour the red wine of your choice over the top and enjoy.
Do we have anything else we want to discuss?
The next chunk is fewer issues. It's about 100 pages less. And this is kind of what got me, I'd read Batman stories before, but it's kind of what got me into getting Batman I think I've regularly gotten almost all the Bat titles since 2004.
Hot damn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's because I randomly picked up this next issue, which was a 12-cent issue. And then I was like, I want to see where the story goes. So, yeah.
So you're saying that advertising actually worked for you?
For me, but I'm also kind of a easy mark.
Aren't we all on the show?
Yeah. When it comes to comics, yeah.
Yeah, aren't we all?
I had someone stop me in the hallway yesterday and ask me a question about comics. I ended up talking about it for 20 minutes. Completely forgot that I was on my way to the restroom and that they were on their way to an actual meeting. I just sat there and talked their ear off about comic books because, that's who we are. Anyway, so let's do this. We will just, we will combine writer and art together for grades, and we'll just go storyline by storyline. How does that sound?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Jamie, school is never a waste of time.
Since we have 15 minutes until recess, please put down your pencils and stare at the front of the room.
It's report card time. It's report card time. It's report card time. I'm so fucking fun.
God, please, no! 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 No!
Okay, so for grades, we'll start with Scarification, written by Anderson Gabrich.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah, Gabrich. And pencils by Pete Wood, inker Cam Smith. It's sort of its own standalone issue, but we'll take grades on it. What's your grade on that, Todd?
I give it a B. It's solid. It's what it's setting out to be. And I enjoyed it. You see Detective Batman doing his thing. So, yeah.
Mr. Adam.
I'll go with the B as well. I mean, this one, again, I don't have a problem with this book. It was so many things that were just so discombobulated that it was like if I had picked this up and read it issue by issue over the period of however many months this came out, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. I just when I see something collected as a graphic novel, I'm expecting something a little bit more. So cohesiveness, yes. So I'm probably going to be it was a B. It was fine. I had nothing wrong with it. It needs to be fully more tied in. So
I'm also going to give it a B. It was just a good little Batgirl Batman story. Again, I like the detective aspect of it with him, tracking down the drug dealer or the drug maker. And then Pete Woods did a lot of art here. I've always liked Pete Woods. He did some great stuff on Wonder Woman, I believe, in the early to mid 2000s. I'm just double checking here, but yeah, go on. We'll move on to the next one because he's done a lot, so I can talk about it.
See, and the art. What's also interesting, talking about the art a bit, is this immediately is following Hush, and Jim Lee though can't turn anything in on time.
This is about 2 years after Hush.
About 2 years after Hush. Hush was in law. I think we've talked about before. My gateway into comics of going, my God, who drew this? What is this? Give me more. And though this is not to that level, it is still very solid and quite enjoyable, and it maintains that really well. So,
and I was wrong. It doesn't look like he did Wonder Woman. He did some Catwoman. That I enjoyed.
Oh, okay. Cool. And I'm going to give it a B as well for all the same reasons that have been stated before. So the Surrogates, parts 1, 2, and 3. Looks like they're all written by Anderson Gabrich and pencil by Steve Woods. And ink by Cam. Yeah, Pete Woods, yes. So same art team for all of those. So for the Surrogates, what is your grade, Mr. Adam?
I'm probably going to stick with the B. The story was fine. I had no problem with the story. It felt like I was watching. This felt like I was watching a bunch of episodes of the Batman animated series. Okay. And it was like you go home from school, you watch an episode, the next day you go watch one, and it was a different story. So
I so love
it's
those.
still Batman. Batman's great. I love Batman. He's like my favorite
good.
DC character pretty much of all time. So Batman's not a bad thing. It's it was an episode of Batman. It wasn't a story arc of Batman. And I'm gonna keep on saying that with every single fucking one we talk about. Also, you should have drunk twice now. So
yes. No, I'll give this as a B as well. I mean, you've got him in full-on detective mode trying to figure out who is this woman, where can I find her, Oracle coming in. He's having guesses. I mean, luck is always those for the ones ready to receive it. So he's always working for it. So it's, you just see him being at his highest level of tenacity going forward. So yeah, it's a B.
I'm actually going to give this an A. For me, this sequence was the highlight of this book. I actually like the storyline. And Mr. Maya.
I'm actually with you. I'm going to give it like an A-B+. I think this was the best part of this book as well.
The Mr. Freeze was fun, taking down the building and that whole bit, being stuck under, cesarean section, the whole bit. And even with Dr. Tompkins, with the grandmother, you later find out, it's like, you need to decide, are you going to let your granddaughter or your daughter die? And that's a tough choice.
That's why you always kill grandma.
That's why you always kill grandma. Put her on an ice floe and send her out to sea.
Get some reindeer.
And then shoot some fiery arrows at it so it lights into flames. And
that's right.
Give her a proper Viking funeral.
We are mixing so many cultures right now.
Grandma got ran over by a reindeer.
Coming home from my house Christmas Eve.
Grandma was a cum dumpster.
Wow. So for Monsters of Rot parts 1, 2, and that's about, I guess, those 2-part stories. Same writer, same penciler, same inker for the first half. Different inker for the second half, which is a guy named Nathan Massengill, I think. He must have gotten tortured in high school. So for Monsters of Rot, sorry. What is your grade, Mr. Maya?
I'm gonna give this one like a B-C+. This was the as far as the actual multi-part story arcs go, I think this was to me the least interesting. So like B-C+.
I'm gonna go with a C. I kind of felt the same way. Like it just felt kind of like you had this storyline that kind of was going somewhere interesting, and then all of a sudden you have this Kafka character show up, and I just felt like it was fucking weird. Like it was sort of like you had this kind of gritty realism with all of a sudden this really, really bizarre Batman villain, and it just was like it was still fun. I still liked it, but of all of this, that's probably one of my least favorite sections. Mr. Todd.
See, and I liked it a lot because of that. Because as these different things, you're being shown different elements and sides of Batman and the mythos, and much like there's Deadman in the DC universe and some of these other characters, you have a little bit of the magic going on. And I enjoy that Batman comes in and out of the magic versus the gritty versus the cosmic versus the amazing superness of it.
He does it all.
He does it all. And
can
deliver babies. God damn it. What can't he do?
I was about to say, what can't he do?
What can't he do? So, I rather...
Celebrate Mother and Father's Day.
Well, with a smile.
Wah, wah.
He can't do it with a smile. I'll give you that. So I'm going to go back and give this a B again. So it ended a little prematurely, it seemed, but the fantastical elements along with it was a lot of fun for me.
Okay, and Mr. Adam.
I'm going to C. So anytime you have a sentient shit monster, I'm going to compare you to the Gotham from Dogma. And you're always going to lose unless you do it much better. So, it was what it was.
Okay, so you have a poop monster to compete with. There you go. So then we have this little polished stone sequence. Anderson Gabrich, Brad Walker as penciler and inker by Troy Nixie. What is your grade, Mr. Todd?
Well, the Stephanie Brown, this one has a lot of departure from the other art styles. Yep. And it really, the departure is great enough. It bothered me the most, as it just didn't fit in with the rest of the group. I know it was in its own issues, doing its own thing, maybe even aimed at a different kind of audience. But as part of this grouping with this arc, it really took me out the most. And even that cursive writing of Stephanie's, I'll agree to that. It's like, what the fuck is it here? Who writes in cursive anymore?
You jumped ahead, actually, but that's okay.
Yeah, this is the Onyx story.
The Onyx story?
This is the Onyx story, yeah. This is the Onyx story.
Well, seeing Green Arrow was fun, and Onyx going on, but it was a short drop-in. It was fine.
Mr. Maya.
This to me was also kind of like a C.
It was a short drop.
It was, yeah. It was enough substance for me. Like, and knowing what's coming ahead, I know the little bit that it set out, like, that this was supposed to accomplish, but yeah, I'll give it like a C.
For me, I'll give it a C. I felt like this was I understand that probably has some basis for stuff that's in the future, but it is the least necessary of anything that was in this book. Like, if you could cut anything out, this would be one of the issues I'd probably cut out. Mr. Adam, what is your grade?
I'm going to C as well. It didn't really add much to the story. I mean, Maya says that it'll play more later, but it was just, it felt like a throwaway issue. So,
okay.
But Green Arrow looks great.
He's aged well. I'm going to kind of loop in all this Robin stuff kind of all together at the end to kind of finish this off. So we have a bunch of writers on this. We have Bill Willingham. We have Anderson Gabrich. Again, we have Dylan Horrocks. We have Damon Scott and Randy Carcone. Bill Willingham again. And then we have artist Damian Scott, Pete Woods, Nathan Massengill, Dave Ross, Jess Delperdang. That's a cool name. Delperdang. Damn. Okay. Damian Scott, Brian Stillfreeze, Damian Scott again, Damian Scott, and Damian Scott. Yes, and Robert Campanella, it looks like. So, for this Batgirl / Robin training montage that we have here, what say you, Mr. Adam?
So I would have given this a B+, but that stupid fucking part with, like, the Teen Titans art bullshit.
The little short story from the issue of Solo.
That drops it down to a B. This actually was one of my more enjoyable parts. It was interesting seeing the origin story of female Robin and doing all that and finding out why she's no longer Robin because Batman fires her and all that fun stuff. So this was enjoyable and interesting and well written. And of all the parts, you could easily see how this is going to play into the future story of War Games because obviously Robin has more to do than just get fired and go away.
And Mr. Todd.
The Teen Titan arts, as I had said earlier, was irritating, but the story was a lot of fun.
I was going to say, that was from an issue you didn't have, though.
Well, some of the style of it. I mean, it was there. But I did enjoy this. Scarab character was interesting in and of the fact that even though it is the goddamn Batman, but how close he comes to the edge of being beaten all the time. Yeah, and it's just this tenacity that seems to keep him going through. But
yeah.
So yeah, but no, it was a lot of fun. I'd give this a B+ on this one as well.
Mr. Maya.
I'm also about a B. You do see, like Todd was saying, Batman close to being beat but winning because he's the goddamn Batman, but he kind of was in the wrong for firing Stephanie because she did save him. I think that Batman is in the wrong here. He basically is firing her for, you didn't do what I said, get the fuck out.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, I don't think it's fair to Stephanie, and I'll B for that last part.
And I will stick there somewhere. I'll say a B as well. I thought it was pretty solid. I don't really have any disagreements with most of what's been said here. So, cool. Does anybody else have anything they want to say about this before we move on to recommendations?
I'm ready for the next part.
Yeah.
It is a ride.
Just wait till comes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, why don't you give us a little preview of what's next week then?
Gang War. That's your preview.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
As opposed to Gang Bang.
That's in the Come Dumpster Fire comics.
That's who loses the war.
There will be the death of many Both Hands.
Fuck you.
Manny Both Hands.
Manny Both Hands.
Manny Both Hands and his moist mother will die. I just imagine Adam is just really upset over there.
No, I'm just really, really tired.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then, let's move on to recommendations.
And now it's time for recommendations. That time in the show where the panel tells you all the crap they are currently into, but will forget about as soon as they see something shiny.
You're a stamp tramp.
How dare you? And what is that? You give your stamp of approval to everything. It's become meaningless.
Why can't you be more like your wife? Lily's stamp is gold. I'm reading this book because of her. I'm drinking this beer because she recommended it. I'm even wearing this bra because of a lingerie store Lily told me about.
Who has something they want to get off
I
their
got
chest?
a couple of things.
Okay, cool.
And as we record this, all 3 of these came out this week, so these will be 3 weeks in the past when you hear this. The first is the first issue of Vampironica, the newest Archie horror book.
Nice.
It's basically the origin of how she became a vampire, and it kind of hints that maybe she is fighting other vampires. We don't know yet, but it's kind of an origin issue. Second is the newest Young Animals book called Eternity Girl, which, keeping in the line the track record of all the other Young Animals books like Doom Patrol, is weird as fuck, but I want to see where it goes. It's kind of hard to explain what it's about, but
was Milk Wars good?
I haven't gotten to haven't gotten to it yet.
All right.
I have them at home. But then the last one is from the husband and wife duo of Gabriel Hardman and Karina Bechko. Bechko. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. But Gabriel Hardman drew this. He's one of my favorite artists. He's done storyboards for a lot of movies you might have heard of, like Dark Knight, Superman Returns. He's done a ton of movies. Those are just the 2 that are kind of popping my head. But it's Green Lantern, Earth 1. DC's been, over the last few years, been doing these Earth 1 graphic novels that are kind of like retellings or modern-day reimaginings of some of their heroes. Like they've done Superman, Teen Titans, Batman. But it is very pretty to look at, and this story is a lot of fun.
Todd, do you have any recommendations?
Well, I think I'm going to piggyback. You had this one not too long ago yourself, I do believe. But I went and picked up the deluxe edition of Jeff Lemire's Green Arrow.
It's good shit.
It is good shit. So it's Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. They're also the ones that are doing Black Hammer on Image Comics as well, running along. That's what I have to say there with the Green Arrow. It's a new 52 run of Green Arrow in that regards, but it's also considered one of the best parts of the new 52 was Jeff Lemire's run on the Green Arrow. So yeah.
And Mr. Adam, do you have a recommendation?
So I think that this is one that I know Brian talked about before and might even recommended, but I had some spare time, and it was actually on Marvel Unlimited. You can see Comixology Unlimited, so if you get that, you can get the whole graphic novel for free. But the Underwater Welder. It was nothing at all what I was expecting it to be. I walked in completely blind, because I know Brian had kind of briefly mentioned what it was about, but I had no clue what the story was going to be. And I'm not going to say much here because it's kind of something you want to experience for yourself, but I think I tore through it in half an hour. I couldn't put it down, and I don't think it moved me quite as much as it moved Brian, but it definitely had an emotional impact, and one I would hope down the road we could actually discuss on this podcast, because there was a lot going on there. So
Jeff Lemire hits you right in the feels.
Yes, he does. I want to do a whole Jeff Lemire month, actually. It's my game plan. I want to do it at some point in time, because I am a Jeff Lemire junkie. Fuck, do I have anything to recommend? Not really. No.
Joe 3.5.
Yeah.
What you been watching on Pornhub? What can you recommend from there?
I typically go for... I was trying to come up with something, and I was like, I got nothing. I don't know.
You don't need to get with the times and go on Tumblr.
Tumblr is all you need?
Oh, that Tumblr is all it is porn.
That's why Yahoo bought it.
Porn and DeviantArt Part 2.
Yes.
Problem is I've been dealing with my job and shit. Oh, I have an anti-recommendation. I can do that.
Let's do that.
Ooh.
That's an anti-recommendation. So if you happen to be in Southern California and you happen to be going to Disneyland and you think, hey, I would like to eat and bowl while at Disneyland and I want to be completely raped in my wallet, then go ahead and go to Splitsville. If you have no desire to actually get your money's worth for fucking anything, Splitsville is your place, man. Like, for sure. Like, for mediocre food, mediocre bowling, way overpriced on every aspect whatsoever, go to Splitsville. It's a big steaming pile of shit, and totally not worth your money. Like, I went last week, and as you can tell, I'm a bit annoyed by how much money I spent at Splitsville. So don't go there. Just trust me on that one.
Imagine what that could have bought on in-stock trades.
Oh my God! Don't even depress me like that. No, like, seriously. Okay, so this is I went with 4 friends. A friend of mine is moving up to Lake Tahoe, so we went and kind of had like a last like boys' day out, and we'd gone bowling a few different times, a few different places. Like, and like, there's some places out here. I don't know if they have them in Utah, but they have like these like bowling lounges kind of thing where like they have waitresses and waiters, and they bring you food, and you know what I mean. Like, you hang out and you bowl. And there's a couple of them. There's like Lucky Strike, and there's Bowlmore Lanes, and there's 300, and there's a few different ones. This fucking place made those things look like a fucking bargain. Like, it was ridiculous. So for 4 of us, we got an hour and 15 minutes of bowling for $24 per person. So I spent nearly $100 for 4 of us to bowl for half hour.
So you didn't pay per game, you paid for the time.
No. You paid for the time, and it's like just enough time that you can't get through it. They stopped us. We had 2 more people on their last frame, and they just shut the power down. It was just like over. Like, that was it.
That's
like
bullshit.
That was way bullshit. Then, of course, the food was mediocre to the point where, like, we'd ordered just, like, basically appetizers. We had 3 sliders, we had a pizza, and we had loaded French fries, and then we had 3 sodas and 3 cocktails, and we ended up coming out at about $140 for food.
Holy shit.
Jesus.
Yeah. So we basically had an hour and 15 minutes on $300 is basically what ended up happening. And the pizza, we ordered this pizza. We thought they'd given us the wrong pizza. Like, we're like, we think this is the wrong one. Like, no, that's the pizza. And it was like, seriously? Like, we'd ordered a Philly steak and cheese pizza. Could not find the meat on that thing at all. There was plenty of fucking kale, which anybody from Philly would have a heart attack having kale on a pizza that said Philly steak and cheese pizza anyway. But, like, it was fucking ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, don't fucking go there. Like, just fucking don't. It was awful. There are way better restaurants and way better ways of spending your money. And if you really, really have the desire to bowl, go to like Linwood Lanes or even go to like fucking Bowlmore or Lucky Strike or something. There's a bunch nearby. Don't fucking waste your time there. Anyway, so yeah, fuck that place. Anyway, moving on to a more positive
Why don't you tell
note.
us how you really feel?
That was actually me being fairly reserved. I fucking hated that place. I hated it so much. Jess went to see if I was completely crazy because like she thought I was going like all Lewis Black on it. So she went over there one day just to have like a cocktail and was like, holy shit. And I'm like, right? Like, it's all mediocre and all way over fucking priced. Like, way overpriced. So if you come to Southern California and you want to know where to go, email me. I will send you suggestions of better spots. Okay, funnybooksandfirewater@gmail.com. I will tell you where to go. So we are going to continue next week on Batman. We're going to do War Games Arc 1. As was described, it is going to be an all-out gang war. And yeah, I don't think we have anything else to add, unless anybody else has anything to add.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Nope, I'm pulling up the menu and the prices for Splitsville. Just to
it's fucking ridiculous.
Even for
maybe I'll leave this recording
California
so you can hear. Oh, it's a fucking ripoff. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous. Like, here's the thing. I paid basically $1 a minute for virtual reality across the street from this thing, and I felt okay with it. This fucking pissed me off.
God damn. Yeah, this is expensive.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, it's really ridiculous.
Oh, you get a what they call the double stack, which is basically like a double cheeseburger for $25.
Mm-hmm. Holy shit!
Yep. Yeah, and it's not good. Like, it's pretty bland, boring food. Like, it's not great.
$17 for the 3 sliders.
Oh, that's a joke.
Yep.
Oh, and also, if you notice there's something special there, they have some of their drinks, their specialty cocktails, are actually pre-mixed drinks they just pour out. So they're charging you, it's weird, Jess figured this out, they charge you more for a pre-made cocktail than they do for a cocktail the bartender actually has to make. So if you order something the bartender has to make fresh, that's going to be cheaper than something that they just pour out of tap.
Huh.
It's fucked up.
That is fucked up.
Next time y'all visit me in California, Todd, we're not going there. Just let you know. We're not fucking going to Bowlmore Lanes. If you really have a desire to bowl, I have other places to take you, but we're not fucking going there. Actually, fun, useless fact, though, if you really are... The bowling alley from The Big Lebowski got torn down, but what they did is they took all the wood from that bowling alley, and in the franchise, the Lucky Strike franchise out here, each bar has pieces of wood from that bowling alley in it. So that's the closest you can have for bowling at the Big Lebowski bowling alley nowadays. So just so you're all aware, in case that's something you want to do.
The dude abides.
Useless California facts, kids. The dude abides. So cool. So we'll go out on the dude abides. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week for Act 1 of War Games.
Did you have to curse so much?
So that happened. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode. This band of knuckleheads will be back next week with a new episode. Until then, you can find them on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr as Funny Books and Firewater, and on Twitter as @FirewaterCast. Go to funnybooksandfirewater.com for the most up-to-date information, as well as cocktail recipes from this and past episodes. Thank you for joining us. And until next week, support your local comic shop, tip your bartender well, and stay hydrated.